It's crazy. There's a culture, there's a strategy and a culture inside of Tesla that built them for this moment. It also built them for geopolitical, even kinetic issues. It's built them for this moment. And why do I say give me specific example? Let me give you specific examples. One thing people realize is like when they pull their door sticker off their new Model Y and they'll look at it and be like, oh my God, there's a percentage of parts that are coming from Mexico. What's going on? I thought these cars were made in the US. First thing you start off, you design it's called in the supply chain design, where is my source of supply? And when you say source of supply, that term means is where is the factory that product comes out the back that goes to a customer. So you start with your source of supply. That's the center of the world. And there's certain people, and this is where people get tripped up. They're like, oh my God, there's 20 or 30% of the parts that are, they're coming from Mexico. The key thing, the higher order bit with tariffs, is not the percent of parts, it's the percent of cost. And it's the percent of the bill of material and the transformation of that bill of material expressed in cost. Okay. And this is where Tesla, by the way, Rivian, by the way, Lucid as well, are positioned very well. Now, Tesla's in a different league, I would say. They both copied a lot of what Tesla's doing, probably out of necessity. Tesla's in a different league because here's what happens. So Tesla's motors, electric motors, inverters, battery packs, these high dollar, high complexity items are made in the factory that Tesla builds the vehicle, or call it, pseudo next door, Nevada to Fremont, so forth. There's some of that, but essentially you have this core. You go back to your source of supply. Everything coming out of Fremont, everything coming out of Austin is going into the United States. Then you start expanding to tier one in the supply chain, and you start saying, and that tier one is like this thing that's orbiting around the source of supply. And what did Tesla do? They took all the high dollar items in tier one and they pulled them into the factory. Part of it was because of they have IP over it. They can build an electric motor better, efficient, and so forth. They have IP around things. And then part of it is actually, I think, built for these kind of situations as well. So when a tariff, let's say, and I'll come up for air here. Let's say GM and Tesla had final assembly in the United States, and they both had a 25% import on GM and a 25% import on Tesla. The two aren't equal, and here's why. What GM does, the high dollar items, we call them high insertion, or we call them, just high direct labor content, percent direct labor content. They move that stuff down to Mexico because that's the sub $16 an hour place to do that activity, and not the $50 an hour place up in the United States. By the way, all of the union negotiations to ratchet prices up drive more content down to Mexico. The more that they were doing that, nobody looks at, okay, what is the resultant effect and the net number of new jobs from doing that? So there may be it'd be interesting if the unions would actually expose, they probably have less net dollars and less net membership as a result of what they're pushing for. You can only push, there should be an equation around how much you can push those labor rates before you start losing more and more parts. And they were losing parts. Okay. So back to my example, a 75% GM assembled car in the US and a 75% assembled Tesla's going to have all those high dollar items in it. They're not going to be importing them. Tesla's going to be importing wire harnesses. They're going to be importing things like that. So when the tariff goes on, the tariff's going on a $4 part and it's making it $5. When the tariff goes on the engine, by the way, they have parts where they're adding value in Mexico. They're bringing it back to a supplier in Texas or in New Mexico. Then they're sending it back over the border to do another step. There's parts that they have, these high dollar parts that come over multiple times. So they're just not built equally. Tariff or not, Tesla has the high value parts co-located with their factory. So yes, Tesla would have an impact, but it would be a small dollar impact. And the other thing is Tesla has very high volume, low model count. So if you're a supplier and you say, oh, look, I got this Model Y part, they want me to move it from Mexico to the US, and Model Y, you look, GM asked me to do X, Y, and Z. Well, GM's got 30 models. Tesla's got this one with all the volume. I'm going to put my people, in terms of my queue of jobs, I'm going to go do the Tesla job and get it done. Because if I don't get it done, I may lose the part.
That's incredibly insightful, right? Because I think one of the biggest things, the debate that I've seen specifically around the Tesla story, is that these Trump tariffs are going to be extremely painful for Tesla. And even though they might incur some higher costs, the totality of the impact of the entire auto industry actually puts them in a significantly better spot, because so much of their stuff is made here in the United. Their high dollar stuff, the batteries, the drivetrains, half or more of the cost in the car is made in the United States, whereas everybody else, the legacy automakers specifically, that doesn't apply to them. I think
there's dozens of models that are assembled, full models that are assembled in Mexico and Canada. Like Kia has 2 products. A lot of the RAV4s for the US, a big volume runner for Toyota, made in Canada. So yeah, there's Sierra models, there's Bronco models, not all of them, but Lincoln models, and of course the Mach-E is all made in. So yeah, let's take apart the Mach-E. Let's say that, we know that all in Ford's costs are near, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 to build that thing. But let's say we take the fixed costs out of it. And let's say net of fixed costs, it's $40-some thousand for them to build it. Well, if the 25% tariff goes on, that takes away that $10K. They were already at, like, why am I building this thing? But it's another nail in the coffin. So when or if the tariffs hit, the other automakers have 2 barriers to deal with. One is, first off, they'd have to have a hoard of cash that they can literally go pay and bribe suppliers, say, keep shipping, keep going. The second thing is, you're just going to have suppliers that are going to stop. So they're going to run into 2 problems. They're going to run into a supply continuity problem, 1. 2, they're going to run into a money problem of like in terms of just the value add on the bill of materials are going to go through the roof. The third thing is, even if they had to go put a blitz team together and say, all right, we're going to requalify and move a bunch of this stuff to the US, back to our original conversation from 5 minutes ago, the high complexity stuff, they moved down there because it had more of the labor content. So it's actually going to be a harder thing for them to requalify in the US. The lesser complex stuff, Tesla moved down over the border for them. So it's going to be easier for them to qual, and they have the volume per SKU advantage. So this is why it's thing. Am I pro Tesla? Am I long Tesla? Yes. But these are just, if somebody came in to have me look at the situation net of any, thoughts on one versus another, this is how I would analyze the situation. And Tesla gets almost no value for their supply chain, their ability to drive their COGS program. It goes all the way through engineering. It goes all the way up to the CEO. They almost get no value for that. But there's a reason they're sitting here today, and then they're the only known auto manufacturer with fixed cost that can produce a profitable EV.
Why don't people recognize their supply chain anti-fragility, to use an Nassim Taleb term, after what we saw in COVID, where they were the quickest to respond, the most flexible, the most able to deal with all of the challenges and supply shocks? I just don't understand why people forgot that.
Yeah, Gartner did. Gartner's a major supply chain rating consulting firm. It's kind of a handshake between the OEM and Gartner if they're going to work together, and they're going to start exposing and trading information together. So it's kind of a little bit like that. But Tesla was the 14th ranked supply chain in the world on Gartner's top 25, and there were no auto manufacturers above them. In fact, in their top 50, I think Toyota was number 40. Now, I think the list changed in 2024, but that's there's a little bit of like, hey, you want to get on this list of ratings of supply chain. But then the other answer to your question you're more thinking about probably is like, why do analysts not think of it? Well, we went through an earnings call where Tesla said, hey, we're going to be supply constrained in 2025. Oh, by the way, there's these tariffs coming on. And none of the analysts asked the question about, why are you supply constrained and what are you doing about it? And what number are you supply constrained to? And then none of them followed up and said, hey, President Trump's been talking about putting 25% tariffs. What does that do to your business? Help us understand it. Nobody asked about it. So there's a void in the analyst community. I love some of them, and they're great. There's just a void of like, not an understanding of the implications of supply chain and the value of the company.
I think so. Just like you, I am long Tesla investor, all that good stuff. I think the thing that I can't escape is that the separation between Tesla and let's say the Western car maker competition. I think China is a whole different story, right? Because China has a heavily subsidized auto industry that's making some legitimately great products, but it's tough to understand what their cost structure is. Are they actually profitable? Their safety. There's a host of other things.
We know they're not paying suppliers on time.
Right, exactly.